you to extend a warm welcome to our honored guests to join us on stage for their speech. I'd really appreciate your time. And now I leave you with the words of our great Dean, Zahia Salhi.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to this meeting, which I am sure you will benefit from a great deal. I will start by, talking a little bit about empowering women in leadership. Empowering women in leadership requires a proactive and concerted effort, which involves creating conducive environments, offering educational and career growth opportunities, and challenging societal stereotypes. The ascension of women to leadership positions is an imperative that society and organizations cannot afford to ignore. It is a powerful tool for change, impacting various facets of business performance and societal development. By empowering women leaders, we can build more inclusive, resilient, and successful organizations and societies. Recognizing the importance of women in leadership and taking concrete steps towards their empowerment is not just a matter of justice, it is a wise strategy for sustainable growth and prosperity. For this, we need to challenge stereotypical representations of women's roles and abilities. This can be accomplished through awareness campaigns and educational initiatives. When women hold leadership positions, it showcases the organization's commitment to equality, diversity, and inclusion, setting a positive example that can permeate all levels of the organization. It can also inspire other women in the organization, cultivating therefore a pipeline for future women leaders. It helps us normalize the presence of women in power, gradually eroding stereotypes and biases. And we are really privileged today to have in front of us, or amongst us, three great leaders. So may I formally welcome Her Excellency Lucie Berger, Ambassador of the European Union to the UAE, Her Excellency Natalia Mansour, Ambassador of Slovenia to the UAE, and Sajeda Shawa, Head of the UAE Office, United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. I am sure, as great leaders, they are going to tell you a lot about what it means to be in leadership positions as women, and of course seeing them here in front of you really presents you with role models, especially for the female students amongst us, to see that there are no impossibilities in life and you too can be future leaders of this country. Thank you very much indeed.
And now, I would kindly ask Dr. Stephen Lowe to join me on stage for his words.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Honored guests, Deputy Vice-Chancellor. It's my privilege to just welcome everyone, and in particular to remind us of why we're here, to celebrate generally the question of women and women in society. As the great African revolutionary Thomas Sankara once said, there can be no revolution without the liberation of women, for women hold up half the sky. And I think it's essential to realize that the reconstruction of our society and the reconstruction of our social fabric is not just the reconstruction of business and all the jobs and all the nice things that go with it, but it's also about the reconstruction of private lives and gender and relationships between men and women. I think it's really important that we as a society are able to reflect on that, and we're able to have an occasion like the occasion today when we hear the insights of the sort of very esteemed panel that we have speaking to us from Slovenia, from the United Nations and elsewhere. So without further ado, I'd just like to again welcome everyone and thank you for participating in this august event.
And now, I will leave you all with an inspiring speech led by our honored guests.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, dear students. It is an honor to be here with you today. First and foremost, I would like to express my appreciation to the Chancellor, the Dean, and to all university members and students for hosting us today. I also extend my gratitude to my fellow panelists for joining us to share their insights on a topic that is very close to my heart, for I think obvious reasons: empowering women's leadership. During my entire career, I have witnessed firsthand the transformative power of women's leadership in shaping global affairs. From diplomatic dialogues to peace talks to trade agreements, climate negotiations, and much more, women bring unique perspectives, insights, and solutions to the table. Both the European Union and the United Arab Emirates have impressive numbers of women in leadership roles. Within the EU, we have seen significant strides towards gender equality, with many women holding prominent positions in various institutions and organizations. Currently, two of the EU's most significant institutions, the European Commission and the European Parliament, are led by women. This demonstrates the EU's dedication to empowering women leadership and the recognition of their ability in steering crucial decision-making at the highest level. Similarly, the UAE has demonstrated a commitment to empowering women with a notable presence of women in leadership roles ranging from ministers to ambassadors, heads of departments and CEOs. What I find particularly interesting is the representation of women in the FNC, where the split between the two genders is equal. Yet despite progress made in recent years, women remained underrepresented in decision-making positions in many spheres of society, including international relations. Empowering women's leadership in international relations is not just a matter of fairness, it is a strategic imperative. Research has shown that diverse teams are more innovative, resilient, and effective. By harnessing the full potential of women's talent and expertise, we can better address the complex challenges facing our world today, from climate change to conflict resolution. So how do we empower women's leadership in international relations? We must challenge the stereotypes and biases, and I think that was also to echo the wise words of the Dean, and biases that hinder women's advancements. We must create inclusive environments where women feel valued, respected, and supported in pursuing leadership roles. To achieve this, we must invest in education and training opportunities for women in the field of international relations. We must promote policies and practices that enable women to balance their professional and personal responsibilities. We must leverage the power of networks and partnerships to amplify women's voices and perspectives in international fora. We must lead by example. And finally, on a personal level, we must never give up. Thank you once again for having me today, and I am looking forward to answering your questions.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everyone. My name is Natalia. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the University of Sharjah. I'm a graduate student from the Universi First, I would like to thank you to the University of Sharjah for having us here. It is really a pleasure and an honor to be here. I'm very glad to see a number of students and some professors joining us. I'm especially happy that it's not just an all-women event, and I can see some male colleagues here along us and male students. It's really nice to be here. I find this kind of debates extremely important. It's a topic that is, of course, extremely dear to my heart, and a topic on which, throughout my career, I also worked on a lot. In one of my previous positions, I used to be the Equal Opportunities Coordinator at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Slovenia. And I have done a lot of work, and we have done jointly a lot of work on reaching exactly to what we're discussing today, and that is empowering women and encouraging them to reach for leadership positions. But first, I have to tell you that I come from a country that is not only known by having the word love in its name. We're the only country in the world where love is in our name. But it's also a country where currently we have women at the top positions. The President of the Republic of Slovenia is a woman. The Speaker of the Parliament is a woman. Our Foreign Minister is a woman. The State Attorney General is a woman. And 40% of the members of the Parliament are women. There we can see that in Slovenia, this is a topic where we work a lot on and where we're trying to move things to the better of our societies. Like distinguished speakers before me said, we agree that equal opportunities and gender equity are important. They're not just important to us women, but they're important for the whole society. When you push forward the rest, the 50% of the society, you push forward the society as a whole. To reach that goal, we need to be working on empowering girls and women, especially when it comes to leadership. We can see that more and more women are joining the workforce. More and more women are educated. But still, the representation on leadership positions does not reflect that enough. So we have a lot of great examples. I have told you some examples that you can see in Slovenia. You have a lot of distinguished leaders in UAE, ministers, ambassadors. I'm sure you can get empowered by looking at them and by seeing their role in the society. But we don't think that is enough, especially in the field of international relations. We even have a celebration declared by the UN on 24th of June. It's marking the International Day of Women in Diplomacy. And that is an important message, reiterating and recognizing the indispensable role of women in international relations and in diplomacy. The data proves that lack of women representation in international relations is in fact detrimental to peace. Data shows that when women have a seat at the table, the odds of reducing instability and conflict improve significantly, and peace agreements agreed with women at the table last longer. But how do we achieve that? What do we do to have more women in leadership positions? In my foreign ministry, we actually conducted a study 2 times, in 2009 and then in 2019, seeing first how many women diplomats are present at the ministry, but also importantly, how many women diplomats are at the leadership position. And in 10 years, we reached a significant improvement. So now in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Slovenia, we have 42% of leaders or people on leadership positions are women. How did we achieve that? Of course, a lot is to be done, that you have to take an active approach to this. You have to encourage and do a conscious effort to allow women and to support women to reach for leadership positions. But what is also important, and something that Ambassador Berger also mentioned, is trying to find a balance between private and work life. This is for women important. we have to balance family and work life, because women, we're also nurturers. And we have to put a lot of examples that convince young women, like yourself sitting here, that it is something that is achievable, that hard work pays off, that diplomacy is no longer a men's club. And I think also with today's discussion, we can show a little bit that it's no longer just a men's club. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Sabah al-Khair, Assalamu alaikum. I mean, it's difficult to come and speak after a very passionate two speeches by two beautiful ambassadors and Dr. Salhi as well. It's very difficult, but I'm very happy to be here today. I'm always very attached to speaking to university students and school students, as I know that we've done our job and we're already in the middle of what a career a woman would do in diplomacy. But you're the hope. You're going to come next. If we deliver the messages correctly, if we motivate you enough, then we will be coming to listen to you in 10, 15 years from now, hopefully. And I have too much hope. And I'm very proud to be actually based in UAE. I was appointed a year ago as the first female head of UN OCHA in the region, and the first Arab as well, which is a message that I want to convey for all the females and the males in the room, that if an Arab speaker managed to reach a diplomatic status in the UN system, then everybody who studies can do that, not only here. But in my background, I worked closely with the EU. I worked with multilateral organizations before for 17 years of my life across the MENA region, North Africa, Eastern Asia, and Caucasus, in the field, in war zones, and in diplomacy. So it's doable. That's my key message that I wanted to conclude with, but I found myself carried away with the emotions coming with the first two speeches, and I decided to start with that, with walking the walk rather than talking the talk. But if I want to connect now into some key messages, facts, because we showed you the walking example of women following their passion, being supported by good men throughout our careers and throughout our personal lives. Because again, another message is that it takes two to tango. We cannot do it alone without the support of our fellow husbands, brothers, parents, colleagues, supervisors, everybody in our life. So it's important to have support of other women, other colleagues, mothers, sisters, best friends, mentors, mentees. But again, we're part of a package. We're living together. We're not living in silos. So if I want to move from those two key advices that I'm starting with, I'll move into figures. As their excellencies rightly mentioned, celebrating international days. The UN celebrates the 8th of March as the International Women's Day. And I want to quote, to read a little bit of the op-ed issued by the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, issued on the 8th of March, giving facts about women empowerment / gender equality as we stand today. That the fight for women's rights over the past 50 years is a story of progress, but there is a lot more to be done. Women and girls have demolished barriers, dismantled stereotypes, and driven progress towards a more just and equal world. Women's rights were finally recognized as fundamental and universal human rights. Hundreds of millions more are in classrooms around the world, and pioneering leaders have smashed glass ceilings across the globe. But progress is under threat, and full equality remains light years away. Billions of women and girls face marginalization, injustice, and discrimination. The persistent epidemic of gender-based violence disgraces humanity. Over 4 million girls are estimated to be at risk of malnutrition every year. Discrimination against women and girls remains perfectly legal in certain parts of the world. Meanwhile, global crises are hitting women and girls hardest, whether there is conflict, climate disaster, poverty, or hunger. Women and girls suffer normally the most. In every region of the world, more women than men go hungry. 1 in each 4 women face hunger in developing countries affected by conflicts. As we stand here today, there are 323 conflicts happening around the world, with 110 million women in need of help while we're talking about women empowerment here today in 2024. In both developed and developing countries, a backlash against women's rights, including their reproductive rights, sometimes is not in the best cases. New technologies have such potential to dismantle inequalities, but too often make things worse because the people leading on technology in many places, particularly on the policies, are male-driven. At the current speed, full legal equality of women is some 300 years away. So is the end of child marriage. The rate of change is frankly very slow. Half of the humanity can't wait centuries for their rights, and we need equality faster than that. And it means accelerating the pace of progress and the release of political ambition and investment, the theme of the International Women's Day this year. So in terms of solutions, it's not only about what we see from the face, it's deep further into investment in economic empowerment, into changing policies to engage women in leadership positions. It's supports more education policies, and most importantly, investing in younger generations. I will stop here, and we're very happy to be speaking on the panel, and thank you again for the great opportunity.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Ms. Sajeda, and our Dean, Professor Zahia. And now, just give me a word. Okay. Now let me open the floor for any questions our audience might have or any insight they want to discuss regarding today's speech with our honorable guests. Please raise your hand if you have any questions.
So I would like to begin the first question. What strategies do you use to promote international cooperation?
Can you hear me?
You allow me to maybe start about it. It's the privilege of actually being the European Union ambassador that you get to speak first, and then you get corrected by the member states. If you mean in general, what's a strategy we use to promote international cooperation, I think it's relatively simple. Interpersonal relations. I think relationships are very, very important in international relations. I think that the most important skill of a diplomat, or the most important knowledge in a way, is not how much you know about history, how much you know about politics, but it is really how you build relationships with people. So for international relations, like for any other relations, I think it is really about the personality and being able to connect and network in a way.
Are you happy with the answer? I mean, just to connect to what Her Excellency said, I was reading something yesterday that there has been a shift recently in the definition of leadership, particularly with women leaders. Historically speaking, leadership, or the image of the leader, it has to be somebody who's old, normally a man, somebody who knows everything, an institutional memory as the go-to person that would know the solution of any problem on earth, be it nuclear energy or budgeting or what to eat for lunch today. But systematically, and according to Generation Z, is it Z? Is it X? Yeah. What letter are you using? Z. The definition or the role image of the leader nowadays is somebody young, somebody dynamic. No offense for males in the room, but most likely a young female. But somebody focusing on collective wisdom. It's no longer the person that knows everybody. It's one person that trusts a team And each team member would be specialized in a certain area, and that's what collective vision. And for me, it was an eye-opener that I think a lot of people grew up in houses or in cultures where, yeah, we need to go to the people who are older because they know more, or maybe the more senior people or more in the political arena, that you need to go to the ambassadors and the senior officials. But I see it more often in my team, in my office, in my organization, that the approach has changed, and it's not necessarily the leader that knows everything. We have thematic experts in each area, and the thematic experts bring on board the knowledge. The leader would actually depend on the advisor in their collective knowledge rather than pitch something that they are not fully aware. And I'm happy today that I'm having a walking example of one of my colleagues with me in the room, who is the first Emirati female intern that I have in the team with me here in UAE. And she brings on board beautiful knowledge with youth expertise. Anything related to youth or to education, I would literally go and ask her, and she would bring on board her expertise. And I use this opportunity to invite you to come and attend the Dubai International Humanitarian Aid Conference, where Noor will be leading a workshop on the youth engagement in the diplomacy area. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for your speech. It was really wonderful. I'm a senior student of international relations. I was wondering, what are the key challenges that are faced in protecting human rights, both in developed and developing countries? And what are the key challenges to empower women? Thank you.
Well, you pose a very important question, because a lot of times we are going back to the debate that whether do we believe in universal human rights or not. In my country where I come from, we believe that human rights are universal, and they encompass also equal rights for women and girls. How do we encourage that? I think it's a lot to be done by showing examples of progress, but also in discussions. As diplomats, we do a lot of discussions. We exchange expertise, we exchange knowledge, but we also say when we see something that we believe is maybe not the best practice. And this is done with discussions that are held on level of experts, but also on a very high political level. For example, we have a president that is a very strong, she used to be an advocate for human rights in Slovenia. So this is something that she brings to the table when she meets leaders from different countries. She would show the example that we have in our country, but also she would say, hey, what are you doing on this? And try to explain the value that we see in working on that. So I think this is part of the work that can be done in that regard.
Maybe if I can complement very wise words of my colleague. I think one of the challenges is that we don't actually always see eye to eye and understand each other what we mean by human rights. And even though it is called universal human rights, there is different interpretation globally. And in a way, I don't think that is necessarily the biggest problem. I think the problem is there hasn't been enough to understand when the interpretation is different, why, and if it can work. So I will actually go back to my first answer. I think the relations, but also the understanding of the other side of the people on the other side of the table of different cultures is extremely important to overcome challenges when it comes to human rights. And what can we do more, especially when it comes to women empowerment and girls? I simply think it is easier for women to actually work with women and help women and understand women. I'll give you a very concrete example. We actually have a female Sajeda in Afghanistan. And the work she's doing, working with women in Afghanistan, is completely different than what any man, no matter how skilled ambassador or diplomat he would be able to do. The trust and the relationship that she has with the women in Afghanistan is simply unimaginable if a man was in that position. So this is not to say we have to send women everywhere, but yes, we should send more women out. We should actually see more women in leadership positions, and we should also see women in leadership positions where we think that it will be difficult for them to have that job, because there can be benefits that maybe we didn't think about.
Thank you very much. I mean, fully agree on all of this. I think in terms of policies, in terms of maybe from a UN perspective, in terms of even implementing projects and all of that, it's important to keep human rights in mind, to include thematic experts in that issue, to make sure that the human rights is integrated in the programming and planning of the program cycle of every project that the UN wants to do through implementing partners and others. And indeed, it's very important to bring on board female experts in thematic areas, as it helps a lot. I can bring on board another example of a gender expert and another human rights expert that managed to come up with something new in the UN system, which was called the Circles of Trust, which was a female empowerment cycle that started informally over a dinner, where they managed to come and share views on things that they were facing that they could not report on officially, as they were worried that there would be consequences of reporting these incidents. And a bit by bit, those circles of trust were institutionalized, and they became part of the offices for staff to know that they have a safe space where they can come and share whatever incidents that happen to them that would affect their rights as humans, that would affect their ability to perform their job. So it's important to embed human rights in the thinking of any institution that needs to operate in any difficult context. And I hope that this complements the views of the other experts.
Hello, my name is Hamid, and I'm a third year student. First things first, I'd like to thank you for giving us some of your time and giving us these amazing speeches. Now, my question is, can you share any memorable experiences or impactful moments from your diplomatic career that have shaped your diplomatic views and the way you approach diplomacy?
I'm actually thinking, I have to say, because to be honest, I was very privileged. I think my entire diplomatic career shaped me. I think every single day I learned something because I really wanted to, but also because I worked with people who inspired me. So I probably cannot pinpoint one single event that has shaped me. I would have to name hundreds of people that I worked with, that I learned from, that encouraged me, but also those who discouraged me. I was actually thinking of sending a thank you letter to some people who told me, no, you will never achieve this, because it made me work harder. I will not probably say something from my history, but I have to say, yesterday we actually watched a documentary of Paul Henri-Spaak. He was one of the founders of the European Union project, also NATO. A lot of integration and started processes that have built the Bureau as it is now. And yesterday, watching the documentary was a very impactful moment for me, because in the first General Assembly of the UN, or in the entire documentary actually, there were only men. There were only men in the film. And that's not my experience. When I was in the UN, it was so diverse, it was so mixed. I think we can still do better. But actually looking back, it is very inspiring to see how much the world has changed in 70, 60 years of time. and that through diplomacy and leadership?
What an interesting question. My first posting when I became a diplomat, and after going through all the trainings and passing all the exams, I got posted to our embassy in Tehran. And you know, for a young woman diplomat, this was quite a challenging experience, very interesting. And there was a small network of women diplomats working in Iran. To be truthful, there was a big number of women diplomats working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Iran as well. So we used to exchange, and then came the time when Slovenia at that time just joined the European Union. And we were among the first of the new member states to be presiding over the EU. For half a year, we have a rotating presidency of the EU. So it was the time when I was in Tehran where we were presiding the EU, which means it was also the time it was in 2008, and when there were heavy negotiations ongoing on the nuclear file with Iran. So the representative of the EU was coming, Sajeda was coming to Tehran quite often discussing these topics. And I could, you know, hang somewhere around and listen to this. Not to the discussions themselves, but to afterwards, to the exchange among the ambassadors. But what was more important during the EU presidency, we were also holding the time for the human rights file. And there were, let's say, quite a number of topics that we were discussing in that file. And at one moment, I was quite a passionate young diplomat when I was meeting a Nobel Prize winner. Her name is Shirin Ebadi, and she used to live in Iran at that time. And what we were working was, as a presidency, we were publishing the positions of the EU, also in Farsi, and putting them out, highlighting how we view things should be better, or where we think things are not going well. And at one point, she came to me and she said, Natalia, you don't even know how much we appreciate what you're doing. It was a tough discussion. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy on a young woman diplomat. But she gave me an encouragement, and I have to tell you, it stays with me to this day. I'm not sure where Ms. Ebadi currently is, but I hope I will meet her ever again, because she shaped a lot of who I am.
Thank you. I mean, I'm not a diplomat by definition. I'm a humanitarian expert, but UN agencies are classified as embassies in UAE. So if that answers your question, I can recall an example from the field. As I spent around 12 years of my experience actually in the field, in refugee camps, in conflict areas, on borders between conflicting countries. So this is where I bring on board my knowledge of the humanitarian response and a lot of humanity into the policies that I work on nowadays. So during the Libya crisis, I was deployed as the EU representative actually at that time, from ECHO, the humanitarian arm, to assess the humanitarian needs of the Libyan refugees that flee from Libya into the Egyptian side. And we were sitting in a city called Saloum, in a city called Messa Matour, on the Egyptian-Libyan border. At that time, I was younger than this, and I recall that I had a meeting with a military person in charge. And I walked in, and for one reason or another, he did not show me enough respect, being a young woman, walking in there, assuming that I don't speak the language. And the impression with him was that, no, ask this young girl to leave the room, let her send somebody more senior. A typical attitude that can be dealt with young officials that are not 100% still confident with having, the strong attitude to come and sit on the table and to say, I am the official. Faced by that incident in the morning, I just left the room and I was disappointed. I reported that incident back, but I didn't have the guts and the courage and enough maybe confidence to reply to that guy. But anyways, my next step was moving into one of the refugee camps, doing what I was actually sent to do. And by coincidence, I would have an eye contact with a little girl who was maybe 4 years old at that time, and she was with her mom and with her dad. I mean, she started winking at me, I started winking back. I tried to find a candy with me or something just to give it to her, but of course her mama and her baba were there. And given the fact that they just flew their country and they were traumatized, they were immediately protected that they covered the daughter and they didn't want me to come close to her. Of course. They were traumatized by everything that they witnessed, wars, explosions, protection measures. A bit by bit, I came and I explained who I am and what do I do there, and they allowed me to give the candy to the little girl. And I became friends a bit by bit with the mother and with the father who knew that I am more of a messenger of help at that point in time, that I can decide, I can report back to the donor on bringing them dignity, bringing them dignifying food, shelter, a nursery for the little one to study in. Anyways, throughout a couple of weeks, and through the aid of the EU, we managed to get them a communal kitchen, we managed to set up a small nursery, we managed to establish activities for men and women to be mentally supported. Again, it's not a life-changing experience. You're not giving them full-time jobs, but you're just taking them from a state where they lost their dignity and they left their houses, they left their belongings, they left their lives behind them, and they ended up sitting in tents with one piece of clothes and maybe no beds for the babies or others. To cut the story short, after 3 months when my deployment came to an end, I turned into a good friend of the family. And I recall the mama saying very well that I have nothing to offer you to say thank you, but can I breathe your hair as a thank you gesture? And she braided my hair. The little one managed to draw little scraps. I mean, as a 4-year-old, you can imagine her artistic ability. But she managed, with the support of the mama, to collect all the papers, and she said, please keep the drawings of my daughter as this is her only way to say thank you. So I still have those pieces of paper. What they don't know was that I was thinking of my own daughter who was 4 years old back home. And I was thinking that this woman could have been me. And this little girl could have been my daughter. So it's the experience that shaped me from the inside and made me decide that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that's why I'm here today. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Sultan Dawi, and first of all, thank you for being here and for sharing your knowledge and experience. And my question is that what is your favorite aspect about your job?
I think it's actually everything, to be honest, but let me elaborate about it a little bit. I actually wanted to work in international relations since I was 11 years old. I'm not joking. It came to me and I stuck with it. When I was 16, I started learning Arabic. I'm still not fluent, but I can, get away with some greetings at the beginning of speeches. And I decided to work in the Middle East, to have a passion for the Middle East. And now here I am, a couple of years later, being the ambassador of the European Union, which at the time when I was 16, we were not even a member. And working with amazing ambassadors, not only from the EU member states, but also globally, with great colleagues from UN agencies like Sajeda. And in a very interesting country. This is super dynamic, and it's very different to what we know in Europe, and we actually have a lot to learn from each other. So what I love about this job is that I really believe that diplomats are striving to improve things, irrespectively in what areas they're active. Human rights, economic cooperation, humanitarian development. I really feel that when you are a diplomat, you go into that career with good intentions. And that is what it actually inspires me every single day. feel like I'm sharing the room with people that want to build a better world. And that's where I wanted to be, and I think that's what has brought me to this.